Hello and welcome to a special edition of The Big Fight, Tech and the Family. That's what we're going to take a look at today, and perhaps it's a theme that we need to keep coming back to, because if you haven't noticed, the world around us is changing really, really fast and becoming quite crazy in many respects, and this is fast becoming the centerpiece of many of our human relationships as well. How many times have you gone to a restaurant and you've seen a family sitting out there, and instead of talking to each other, they're all on their particular device? Sometimes they're communicating with each other. I wouldn't be surprised if sometimes someone's texting someone to say, can you order a pizza for me or get me a drink? And that happens with friends. You see your friends going out and they're sitting and they are interacting on devices as opposed to doing something else. What does this mean for relations? What does this mean for family? Because there are others who will say, but it helps you to keep in touch. You have WhatsApp groups these days or Facebook groups, and you can keep in touch with friends whom you haven't encountered for 20 years and whom you may never have encountered again if it hadn't been for technology. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, which is why it makes an interesting debate. And this, as I said, may be a theme that we're going to keep coming back to. So let me welcome all the panelists we have with us. Let me start off with Sachin Bhatia, who's the CEO and co-founder of Truly Madly, which helps people find love or companionship or all of the above. A dating app, is that the right way to call it?
Right. Okay, we help people find dates. We stop at that.
Help people find dates and then stop at that. All right. And only single people, I believe.
Only single people.
So it is not the Ashley Madison of India.
Not at all.
Okay, not at all. Right. Ranjana Kumari, Director for Social Research, somewhat bemused by all that's happening in the world around us. Professor Anupam Sibbles, the Senior Pediatrician and also the author of Is Your Child Ready to Face the World? And facing the world means on Facebook or facing in real life?
Both aspects, because Facebook is so important these days for a lot of kids.
Okay, both on Facebook and in real life. Which is real, we don't quite sure. We'll find out by the time the next hour is over. Gauri Ishwaran is the former principal of the Sanskriti School, also very closely involved, of course, in running T-Gelf and giving a lot of advice to bright young kids these days. Dr. Amit Sen is a psychiatrist who somewhat will maybe be able to help us tell what this is doing to all of our brains. It's probably frying them in some way or the other, but we're not quite sure how. Meenakshi Reddy Madhavan is a blogger and a writer who spends all her time on some tech or the other, don't you?
I also travel and look at the trees.
You do?
Yes.
In real life?
In real life.
Okay, that's great. Suchitra Krishnamurthy, actor, singer, great to have you with us, Suchitra. Also, of course, a mom who is somewhat thinking about what impact all of this is having on kids and everyone else. But okay, let's just get back, let's get everyone's basic view. Is the world changing radically? It's obviously been changing for a while, but have we passed a tipping point, and is it good or bad? Are we getting more companionship through technology or less?
I think you're getting more companionship for sure, because you're discovering people you would never otherwise have discovered, be it on social media, be it on Facebook, etc., discovering new people on Instagram, or on dating apps like ours. You are discovering new people.
Are you so sure the people you're discovering are real human beings? Because sometimes they may not be. You might be having a really intense relationship with
a bot.
Could be a female, it could be a bot actually. It could be another man for all you know. Who knows?
Yeah. Well,
nothing wrong with that necessarily, but you may not want to be doing that.
Well, those are some of the pitfalls, but 99% of those relationships would be real for sure. I mean, there'll be real people behind that. They're just the 1% who, spoil the pool, so as to speak. But no, these relationships are real. It's a great way to discover people. Is it a great way to keep that relationship going? That, to my mind, might be a big question mark.
But you could be having a relationship potentially on Truly Madly or Facebook or anything else. You could be having a relationship with somebody, an important human relationship with somebody who's not real. That's
no, there will be. I mean, there's a lot of authentication now with that Facebook does, which even apps like ours do, to make sure that there are real people, right? And they are who they are. I think more importantly, the people are real, but are they who they are saying they are? I think that's the important one.
Ranjana? I mean, there are people who feel that the only real relationships are when you are sitting across somebody in a cup of coffee in hand or something stronger, looking at the person in the eye and having a conversation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think touch, feel and to know someone or to be able to look at someone is certainly the more real experience in life. And through the kind of app and as exponential growth in all, 10 years back we didn't know there will be a smartphone. And we'll be doing everything through the smartphone. Even sitting in a restaurant, as you said, the daughter will tell father what to order, but not ask the person who is really coming to take the order, but will look into her phone and say, oh, this is the best dish of this restaurant. You know, and also
It
I
could
remember
get worse. She could SMS her father sitting across the table from her and saying,
and talking to somebody else. And also I think this is creating two kinds of situation. In one, you are getting connected, which you think you are getting connected, but you don't know with whom, what kind of a person you are getting connected, why you have so many thousand friends with you, whether they are real, they are not for real. On the other side, they are getting very badly isolated.
So when you're looking at what this is doing to kids and are they more ready to face the world or not, is something happening to us as a species now where we are finding it easier to communicate with people through technology than in real life? Is there anything wrong with it?
You know, we keep blaming children and say, they are addicted to technology, but we have to pause and just think for a minute. When we introduce a 1-year-old to a tablet and say, okay, you can look at cartoons, and then we, with a sense of pride, tell the whole world that our 1.5-year-old knows how to operate a tablet. It's not the child's fault. We introduced him to the tablet. A 6-year-old comes home after playing and he sees both his parents and his older sibling on the smartphone, texting, replying to mails, WhatsApp, Snapchat, what have you. And then when at the age of 10 or 12, and it really varies from family to family, whether you get a smartphone at 10 or 12 or 14 or whatever, and then the child just starts doing that, and then the parents say, you have no time for me, look at me, I've come home tired and you are busy. They forget that 10 years ago, they had actually conditioned the child to make a smartphone a part of his or her life. So it's really
is it
the
a
problem
good
with
idea, you feel, to deprive children up to a certain age of devices?
No, I don't think it's about depriving.
Or
it's,
just
it's
making
about
sure
getting
that
a
they're kept
balance.
aside, because many parents take that decision consciously. And I know I've done it. Say that, look, at the age of 6 or 7, don't watch too much TV, read a book, do something else. You're not going to have a smartphone till you're at a certain age. Is that a right thing to do or a
I
wrong
think
thing to
absolutely
do?
right, because what is happening is, instead of reading from a book or telling a child the story, we've actually passed on this responsibility to a gadget because we just are so busy, and we don't really know where to draw the line. And it's extremely important to have a balance, because what we are seeing here is really moving in the direction of an addiction. You get the dopamine released from the limbic system as you get when you're addicted to a gadget as you would with actually taking addictive stuff.
Can I get a psychiatric opinion on that very quickly from you before I come to you, guys?
Yes, of course.
Dopamine releases being similar to actually having drugs.
Indeed, what Anupam is saying is entirely true. There are these circuits which can be actually captured in functional brain imaging studies, where you see such sort of identical common patterns between drug addiction, and of course you can also see it behaviorally. I believe that young people and even old people now seem to live in a bubble, and they carry their bubble everywhere they go. So, for instance, if even a dad who's walking home, let's say from work, will carry his office in his pocket, isn't it? I mean, he will continue to have chats
But the flip side of that is that sometimes you are able to go home earlier, or you're able to go for vacations at a time when you may have otherwise had to stay on in office, because you say, well, look, if there's something really important, you know how to get in touch with me.
Of course, there are these positives, but I, very consciously have decided to take the stand that I think perhaps not many people will take in this forum, and that is because we see so many of the negative sides in a clinic like ours, or in the families of the young people that we see. So more than, no doubt it builds relationships, I'm sure, especially if the relationship is already existing. And if you extend that through gadgets, that's all right. But what about the numerous other people who bank purely on the relationships that they build through these gadgets?
Okay, and doing
are
the
these
and
real
relying on those.
Are these virtual relationships? Is my question.
Right, relying on those exclusively. Sometimes people talk about, when I was started off by saying, you can keep in touch with old friends and others because, and today that's happening. You see the number of WhatsApp groups that are now being created. Every school has a badge, every college has a badge, and all of those are very strong forum where you can stay and keep in touch with people from before. I guess the problem comes when there are some kids today who don't actually never made that face-to-face contact, or don't do it quite that much. But is this a bit alarmist? Because when you're looking at schools, at the end of the day in schools, a large amount of hours kids are spending together, and no gadgets are there because they're not allowed in school.
Smartphones cannot be wished away. So how do you deal with them? How does the society deal with them? How does a family as a unit deal with them is what is important. Now, if you say, I will not give my child a smartphone till the age of 16, he will borrow from somebody else and experiment.
No, but
so,
you could take a
you
decision.
can't really deny. You have to see, today's children are a different generation.
But you could take a call, like if you look at the number of schools who say you cannot get a phone into school, right? If you're going for a class trip, you can't carry your phone. Similarly, parents could say, maybe not 16, 16 is probably being a bit radical, but you can say you will not have a smartphone till you're 13, 14, maybe somebody will
But
say
you know,
11.
you have to then give then the parent needs to give the logic to the child. Because today's child will not accept if you say, oh, I'm not giving you the phone. Doesn't matter whether he's 10 or whether he's 16. You have to give a logic as to why you are not giving the telephone.
You're frying your brains, as he said. You're
but what are you going to see? The smartphones are not going to go away. Not giving children smartphones is not going to take that away. So the family bonding, the friendship bonding needs to be strengthened. So parenting comes in here. The parents who come from work late and are forever sitting on their phone, then do they really have to do that? Can't they take out 3 hours when they come back home and spend time with their children?
The entire question of this thing is to try and find where the line should be and how do people respond to it.
And how to balance it out, yeah.
Suchitra, how would you handle this as a mom?
So definitely technology is a boon. It has changed our lives radically. It is a fantastic thing. As long as we know how to use it and we don't become slaves to it, you know. I think the danger comes in when you become slaves to it. And I think technology has made the world a more equal place. It's made the world a safer place. For example, for all those talking about wiring the brain, hey, I would rather give my child that phone and know that she's safe and she can call me anytime. So I think there are ways of looking at it. And if you're talking specifically about parenting, it's definitely up to the parent to create certain rules and do's and don'ts. Like no phones. Like we have a rule in our house: no phones on the dining table. No texting each other from the room. You come and you talk to me and you hold my hand if you're having a problem, rather than texting me your thing. We have to control it rather than let it control us. That's the way I view it.
Okay, is that easier said than done sometimes, Meenakshi?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm the last generation also to remember life without the internet. And I was quite a lonely kid. So for everyone saying, are your connections only virtual? I would have welcomed virtual friends, actually, at that age. Also, when I finally got a phone, not even a smartphone, just a regular phone, much after all my friends, I suddenly felt like I was part of a club. And now everyone was laughing about their texts in class and stuff. I could actually join in and be part of their text group. So for all that, it is about inclusivity as well. And
I think that's a very interesting point. And can I just come back to some of you? Because what she says is, and this comes back to the question, ma'am, that we were discussing right now. If you don't give your phone, and this is what happens, sometimes if you tell your kid, look, you're only 11, you can't be on Facebook, or you should not be on YouTube, or you should not be watching XYZ, or I'm not going to give you a smartphone, then that problem comes in that she's talking about, that in the real world, they may not be part of some of the other discussions and conversations that I have.
So usually when children who go on the internet and onto Facebook, and they say in their real life they have no friends, but there they feel a part of a community, you need to look at what is the problem the child is having. There's usually some other problem, and this is only a symptom of that.
We are witnessing a real, different form of family now, because there are single parents, there are 2 men who are parents, there are 2 women who are parents, there are different forms of family. Family is really evolving into a next stage. This is what is going to happen, and very fast it is happening. In next 10 years, we'll see that. So I think ideal situation is that you draw a boundary and children will listen to you. But today's 18 is tomorrow's 12. You see, this we have to keep in mind, because today's 18 is going to be tomorrow's 12. So this kind of a boundary will not work. So what will work is to really, and also what is offline is what is online. Same kind of texting, bullying, sexting, all kinds of things that you experience, and especially from the context of women and children, I'm saying that this is what you see also online.
I'm about to come back to adults and what is happening there, but let's just finish with the kids part of it. So Chitra, you wanted to say something.
Okay, see, parenting is a very subjective thing, and it need not be a military drill, Yes. So I disagree with one of the panelists who just said that it's up to the parent. You set particular hours, because in today's world, children cannot be treated like robots. It's not a military drill. That kind of control doesn't exist. For example, if you don't give your child that
sorry, Suchitra, just take you up on that. To just take you up on that, I think at the end of the day, children always appreciate certain boundaries. You can't say you're an 8-year-old, you do exactly whatever you want. You have to have certain rules, certain disciplines, certain... and that's what also teaches them how to function.
And these,
in society,
but those rules
can be negotiated.
Those rules have to include what they want to do, what they don't want to do. I think control is excessive control on kids is also a very harmful thing. And in today's world, when they, for example, if a child, an 8-year-old, is completely deprived of something at home and they see the entire peer group enjoying those very benefits, they're going to feel deprived, they're going to feel like a freak. So it's very important to draw the balance and, you know, approach it like sensibly and compassionately rather than I think it's wrong, so it shouldn't be done. That's what I'm
let
trying to
me get Anupam in on that. Okay,
there are
Anupam, the
dangers,
flip.
of course, when a child's validity is...
But where do you, so we're discussing this in the context of technology, but tomorrow you could be in a situation where a 14-year-old or 15-year-old child is saying, well, I'm going to fake an identity and become a member of Truly Madly or something like that because everyone else in my class is doing it. He may object and try and stop it, but so at some point rules have to be set on technology.
Yeah, I think what we need to realize it, whether it's technology or whether it's behavior, what is acceptable behavior is that this generation is very different. The problem is that parents are used to one particular style of parenting the way they were raised. And in our generation, you never really argued with your parents. You didn't reason. If you disagreed, it was a very mild disagreement. The other day, a friend of mine told me that he has a 7-year-old and his father is 75, and the grandfather said something, and which was factually incorrect. And this 5-year-old told his grandfather that I'm not like your son who will not correct you when you're wrong. So, and my friend was, oh my God. But we have to realize
what did the grandfather say?
No, the grandfather really said, oh wow, this is a different generation. So what we have to realize here is that we have to forge a relationship with our children where they actually want to hear some of the do's and don'ts. We can't really say that, this is your boundary because I think so. This is true because the kid is going to say, well, Google disagrees with you.
Actually,
so
the logic behind it is very important.
Can I just come in here and just reflect on who and why, what would be the reasons through which they would set the boundaries in something like a gadget which is as new as 10 years old. Let's think about alcohol. Is it all a bad thing? No, I mean it's an icebreaker. It's used in social situations. Tomorrow, exactly, exactly.
12-year-old to or 14
absolutely.
or 16
but,
or 15 to.
But there's
but
an age
alcohol
limit.
is not
Absolutely,
bad thing.
absolutely.
So if you make a
It's okay,
rule
if I can
like
finish.
that, if you make a rule
Sure.
like that, then you have to be very careful
So,
Yes.
that
if-
your
if-
12, 13, 14
That's precisely
is going
my
to get
point.
into it and you face the consequences.
That's precisely my. Can I finish what I was going to say? So we have already known how to set boundaries with alcohol because alcohol has been there in our culture for generations together. We know it so well that and of course there are still pitfalls, but we know with a certainty that alcohol is bad in this age, and this is how we can take it, and these are the addictive behaviors. With this gadget, we don't know anything about it. So who is to tell us what is going to be damaging and what is not? And from the trends that we see, in our clinics and what we see in the media even, the kind of news that you hear about what happens in relationships which are forged through internet and kind of disappointments or kind of exploitation that you see, you really begin to wonder that who is it? Is the older generation equipped to do that? Not at all. In fact, the younger generation will tell you that they know much more about it. So should we leave it to them? These are the pitfalls, I think.
Can I give an example here?
Yeah, Suchitra, and then
Yeah, when my daughter was about 9 or 10, she wanted to create a Facebook account. And I allowed her to do that, but I said on the condition that I will kind of supervise, because I know there are freaks on the internet, they see pictures of children, there are all kinds of weirdos out there. So at that point, she had got very offended. And I said, but that is the only condition on which you can have a Facebook account or it's not going to happen. So though she fought me at that time, now she agrees with me. So,
Fortunately, now 9, 10-year-olds don't even
sometimes
want
you
a
have to
Facebook
put your
account.
foot down.
they're
but you
not
have to
supposed
go
9,
to
10 year old,
it.
but hang on,
This may
but
not also
Suchitra, the
lead
same point is, but by the way, that's
Because
coming.
kids of that age do have a Facebook account.
Well,
Well,
that's
not
the part of the
necessarily.
problem. That's the part.
So this is
the thing
exactly
that
it's a divide,
No, we know only
There are
two
others.
things. As an Indian
Because some
parents,
of our
either we
friends
are too
already had
controlling,
it.
Okay,
or
see,
we
let's
do not
say-
know how to give
yeah, that's what
informed
I-
democratic space. That's the whole
See,
problem
informed
with Indian
democratic
parents.
space is one thing, but there are
Yes.
certain areas that surely it's a responsibility then. Now,
Yes.
we're looking
See,
at the concerns, the dangers of technology and the dangers of unfettered access to, gadgets or the internet go a little bit beyond just, they're spending too much of their time online. It could actually be access to seeing things like pornography, which they shouldn't be seeing at a 10-year-old. I'm sure that would fry somebody's brains. And of course, then, pedophiles being exposed to cyber stalkers, all of that. So there are some very real dangers, which is, of course, at the far end of it, where parents have no choice but to try and protect children.
And we have seen them in our clinics too. You know, we have seen children coming with, post-traumatic stress, and we have seen children coming in depression just because another friend asked them to see a particular site, and they're completely, devastated and completely conflicted as to who to share it with, what to do with this burden. And we see this every now and then, and that's a scary bit. It's not a one-off that we see.
So it's not something which you can take lightly.
Oh, no.
A young child, for example, having access to things like pornography online.
And Vikram, when you talk about boundaries,
I think that technology can be kind of scary, especially for the older generation. So, you don't know, first you're like, should I impose a blanket ban and should I say everything is off limits? Then you're like, maybe there's a child lock thing I can put on this. But there's always something that you can do to get around it. There's Snapchat, basically, where everything disappears immediately. Instagram, where you don't even know what the hashtags are, but they're hashtags for anorexia and, for getting as thin as you like. And the idea is for people for the older generation, the supervising adults, to start educating themselves more about what's going on instead of just saying no.
Actually, the adults.
No, one is to educate, but then should you also be having some protective boundaries?
Not educate the kid.
I think in
No, you
today's age,
actually
you
need to
cannot say
educate
a
the
flat
adults
no.
more on how to handle this. If you look at, so we have a lot of 18, 19-year-old girls on our app, and we tell them, hey, why are you giving your WhatsApp number so early on in the conversation to these guys? She's saying, hey, I'll take care of myself. I'll block him on WhatsApp. So they, I think, understand how to handle this far better than what a lot of us here imagine.
And
But that's
also
at
lot of-
18,
Vikram, I
19.
just
At
wanted
10
to
and
give-
11, it could be very
Yeah,
different.
10, 11 is
Yeah,
obviously
I just
different.
wanted to give information that a lot of online companies, and they're looking at creating safety and security systems in more efficient way than we all are aware of. Even the younger generation, just now we've launched a very interesting small booklet where you know how to protect yourself from cyberbullying, sexting, all kinds of stalking, impersonation. So companies are trying to do this kind of, but a lot of people, parents especially, are not aware. So what they are doing, they are putting spy scams, systems, spying on your own children. Then what will happen? The day the child will discover that my mother was watching what I was doing on Facebook, there is a kind of mistrust that will develop in family. That is another crisis that is going to come. The colliding generations, that one generation will think the elder generation is not trusting, and that is why all this depression.
But
so I think that the need is to know more about it.